Welcome everyone to Buddhist Center. So wonderful tonight. We're looking at Lama Tsongkhapa's Source of All My Good, Foundation of All Good Qualities that encompasses all of the stages of the path to enlightenment. Just so wonderful. But before we get started, I just want to let you know of a few things that are going on right now that are pretty incredible. Geshe Dorje Damdu is in the midst of only 2 sessions in to a 7-session teaching on the Rice Seedling Sutra. So that's one thing that Geshe Dorje Damdu is doing that you can freely watch live on Zoom, or I believe it's being streamed on YouTube live also. You just have to go to the Tibet House India website. It's on our Tara Mantra Facebook page. There's just a QR code. The hours may not be great for you depending on what time zone you're in, but it goes on until Sunday. And as we all know, Geshe Dorje Damdu is an incredibly skilled teacher. This is an incredibly important text. It goes through all the 12 links and really gives you the flavor of how, dependent origination works and so forth. So we won't get into, I'm not explaining the Rice Seedling Sutra. But yes, Geshe Dorje Damdu is teaching that for 7 days. And tomorrow is the Chukor Duchen, the great festival, the turning of the wheel of Dharma, the celebration of the turning of the wheel of Dharma. And at 8 a.m., separate from the Rice Seedling Sutra, at Eastern Standard Time, or 8:30 Eastern Standard Time, 8:30 Eastern Standard Time. Check the Tibet House website. You also have Geshe Dorje Damdu giving a short couple-hour teaching on the Dependent Origination Mahayana Sutra, the Mahayana Sutra of Dependent Origination, and there's a soak offering also, which I've never seen them do there, so that'll be fun to see. And that's one bracket of incredible stuff that's going on in the next few days. Geshe Dorje Damdu, Tibet House, New Delhi. And then the teaching that he's giving with the Rice Seedling Sutra is in affiliation with the Kala Chakra Center, I think in France. I believe that's where it is. And then, so that's Geshe Dorje Damdu's incredible stuff. And then His Holiness the Dalai Lama this evening, in a few hours, starts a 3-day teaching. First night, 37 practices of the Bodhisattva, the Bodhisattva Tome Sampo. And then we have the second day, Chenrezig initiation. And then third day, there's a long life prayer ceremony for His Holiness. So, I mean, this weekend, if you're interested in the Dharma and you have some free time, there's really incredible stuff going on. And I think it's around 9:30 that His Holiness will come out tonight and teach the 37 practices. So I just want to, kind of let everyone know it's important that, I announce when my teachers are teaching and that I don't ever teach in conflict time-wise with my teachers. And His Holiness the Dalai Lama is my teacher, and Geshe Dorje Damdu is my teacher, and Umzala Geshe Agan, everyone knows, Kensur Geshe Wandak, etc. But I think it's really important for you all to be able to see that, yes, I'm giving teachings and there's a discussion, but there's another level of understanding that you can gain from a Geshe Larampa who's very skilled at instruction, like Geshe Dorje Damdu, or getting a teaching right from Chenrezig Buddha, the Dalai Lama. So I just want to make sure that this isn't like your stop sign here and like, okay, this is fine. Just remember to always, if you want to be the best tennis player in the world, play with the best. So that's what I've always tried to do. And right when Kensur Geshe Wandak passed away, he told me, you can have more teachers, you have new teachers. Don't be satisfied with, kind of partial instructions and partial understandings. And even though he had given me non-partial instructions, I had partial understandings and still do, and require really skilled teachers to fill in the gaps that, my ignorance wasn't, was kind of in the way of, my confusion was in the way of when Rinpoche was trying to kind of tell me some of the higher points about the Madhyamaka view and the tenet systems and Lorig and so forth. So now I'm trying to take it to another level, because I know that even though 25 years I spent with Rinpoche and know, a decent amount, I guess, a decent amount about the Lamrim, about the Buddha, the path, I still see grasping in terms of view, and I still have self-cherishing so much, and I still am attached to this life. So there's more that I need in terms of my saturation and analysis. And this is why I mentioned to you who I put my mind's spiritual monopoly in the hands of, because I do not take that lightly. I don't just go willy-nilly and say, this is my teacher, that's my teacher, because I was fortunate that when I may have done that, I fell into the lap of a very qualified Lama and got it to stick right with him. Who knows what would have happened, but that's not what happened. I know really the difference now. And I know that if I don't want to be satisfied with partial instructions, I can't have partial instructors. So this is why we need to seek out fully qualified teachers who can explain the Prajnaparamita to us, who can explain the perfection of wisdom and the 70 topics, who can explain the Madhyamika avatar, who can explain the Madhyamaka view, according to Nagarjuna and the Mulya Madhyamika Karika. We need these, teachers. So I just want to reinforce that, yes, I give these 2 teachings a week. And I feel very blessed to be able to have information to share with you that's really changed my life, has really helped me, but it's not all the information that you'll need. And I don't know all the information that I'll need. So therefore, I seek out more information. Even though you hear me blah, 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 I don't believe that's enough. And I know, because I know my mind, and I know that all of that information hasn't penetrated it enough, hasn't turned it into a renunciate's mind, hasn't turned it into a bodhisattva's mind, hasn't turned it into an arya's mind. So these are my goals. And if my goals aren't met, it means I need more. And if from my side, I don't have the more yet, I'm not going to get the more from me. So, all right. So that being said, again, welcome everybody. And before we get started with anything else, let me just read this. This is from the prayer, the great Samantabhadra prayer, the prayer of noble conduct, the Sanchu Molam. And it's a verse that, says, may I be able to, speak in the language of all beings. It'll be self-explanatory, but before a lot of teachers started teaching, they say this verse. So I'm trying to adopt that ritual because I see its benefit in terms of the teacher really setting motivation before the teaching starts, that this is for the benefit of all sentient beings. The whole point of this is to be able to get the truth of suchness across to everyone I possibly can, because a Buddha will try to get the truth of suchness to all sentient beings. So I set this motivation from the outset, so I know for sure this is the Mahayana doctrine. I know for sure that my idea of and my self-cherishing attitude isn't taking over. I'm thinking of how I could teach the truth of suchness in a clear way, in a way that could be understood to all beings. So this is a very, very beautiful verse. In the language of the gods, nagas, and yaksas, in the language of demons and humans too, and however many kinds of speech there may be, I shall proclaim the Dharma in the language of all. And you see the non-biased here. You see that in the language of the demons and of humans, we see this non-biased kind of aspiration right there from the outset that's being made in this, King of Aspiration prayers. Before we go any further, let's get into the 7-point Vairakana posture, and a posture that'll help us to kind of get our mind into a state of clarity, or whatever posture we normally get into, that we can get into, that we've been instructed, to get in, we can get into, and, it'll be okay. It's always important to seek instructions, from meditators, people who do meditation. If you say, well, I need to modify this or that. If you have questions, ask those questions. They're really important. The whole point of the physical posture is to support your mind in such a way to be able to make it clear. And great meditators have found that this particular position called the 7-point Vairocana posture is so conducive to having all the blood and the winds and everything flow exactly the way that they should in the best balance. And therefore, it allows for a clarity of the mind to take place because of this kind of physical inobstruction that's going on. And because the mind, rides on the wind that flows through the whole body has consciousness, sense consciousness and mental consciousness. We're trying to work with our mental consciousness. So if we can align our kind of physical body in a way that won't be distracting, that will allow for the mind to flow freely, then we'll be able to then check it, like we said the last class, to see if we've gotten into the best physical posture possible to support our mind's clarity, because we've been told by great meditators that this physical posture is the best one, or one of the best, or some of the best, whatever, to get into, to create a kind of support mental clarity. And now we're in the physical posture and we see, okay, we're doing the best we can physically. Did it work? Or is there some other antidote, something else I need to kind of use in order for my meditation to be successful? And like last class, we talked about that may mean getting up. That may mean washing your face, or drinking some tea or hot water or coffee, or looking at the moon. Or starting to do an analysis of some sort, depending on what it is. If you have some pride that's welling up, you're really going to check to see if you have clarity of the mind, so that when you go into your next steps of imagining, the merit field, and you're imagining the 7-limb prayer, and then making further supplications, you're making sure that you're in the most fertile place possible to grow the seeds of realization from those next steps. So this is the reasoning, one of the reasonings behind this. I just wanted to share a little more with you about what I shared last time, about how sitting down on your meditation cushion, you first check your mind and see how it's going. And if it's sleepy and dull, don't just sit there with it and try to, get the hour or the 45 minutes out. Get up, do whatever you need to do to get your mind headspace right. Sit back down in the cushion and get 20 minutes of 30 minutes of quality meditation, instead of 45 minutes of kind of sleepy dullness that is posing as meditation and really is just like laying on a couch. And I'm thinking about, like, oh, if I went to the beach, and then if I went to here, I'm thinking about, whatever it is, it just becomes kind of like a journey, an imaginary journey that doesn't really stick in the same way. So we get into the 7-point Vairocana posture. Most importantly, try to keep your back as straight as possible. It says the vertebrae like a stack of coins. And then we'll begin by having a focal object, because we're trying to do fixed meditation first. There's fixed meditation and analytical meditation. When we look at divisions of meditation, analytical meditation takes a subject and looks at it in every single way possible. Fixed meditation takes an object, fixes it, and tries to make the mind only focus on that and nothing else. Whatever it is, that focal object you've told your mind to focus on, a fixed meditation doesn't move around, doesn't think about the object, isn't like, oh, that object of Buddha Shakyamuni I'm thinking about, it's beautiful, or there's nothing going on except the focus of the object. The conceptuality related to the details and so forth are to be kind of quelled, so that it's just a primary focus on an object of observation. So here, every time we have class, we do the same thing, just to kind of do an exercise to Buddha said, if we have a lot of conceptuality, focus on the breath. So it calms our mind down and gets some of the conceptuality, that's the busyness that's pushing out new ideas, away. And it also allows us to practice doing focused meditation, fixed meditation. We're going to need to learn what those 9 stages of shamatha are. beginning with like, kind of a placement of the object, a setting of the object. But then there's a lot of stages and steps that you'll go through to get to shamatha. And some of the stuff that we're talking about at the beginning of class, is very applicable, and you'll find in the stages of shamatha where we say, what the focal object is, breathing in, breathing out, counting, front generation form of Buddha Shakyamuni, and all of this is the only thing we're, allowing our mind to do. We're focusing our mind only, mental consciousness only on this, this breathing in and out and counting, and this front generation form of Buddha Shakyamuni, the size of our thumb, eye height, arm length away or so, and where our mental consciousness is focusing on that. So this becomes our focal object. In the shamatha practice, you have then, what are your obstacles and what are your antidotes? So your obstacles to gaining single pointed concentration, fixed concentration. Obstacles are excitement, scattering. So we know busyness of mind well, or when our mind's excited, moving towards desirous objects. And then the other kind of obstacles that arise are what we just talked about: sleepiness, dullness, lethargy, just kind of the object of observation, even though it's kind of there, just sitting there in your mind, whatever it is, if it's the Buddha or the breathing in and out and the counting in the Buddha, it's sitting there. But something in the mind is so dull. It's almost like the light's been, have the dimmer, you turn it down a tiny notch. It needs to be turned up all the way to full brightness, so that the object is clear and the mind is calm and not moving. So there's two things you're looking out for that are no good. Scattering's no good, excitement's no good, and dullness, lack of clarity, sleepiness, lethargy, no good. So what do? It's going to happen. You're going to move away from breathing in and out and counting in the front generation form of Buddha Shakyamuni, probably. Or, if in your own practice, you're just doing front generation, you're just imagining the Buddha, or you're just imagining Tara, or you're just imagining Chenrezig. Our minds are going to move off of that as beginners. So what do? We have a spy of introspection in our mind. I know I always repeat this, but this is how we meditate. If you know how to meditate, you can meditate. We have the spy in our mind that's checking. Okay, I have this focal object I've decided, whatever it is. Here it's breathing in and out, counting in Buddha Shakyamuni. Could be Chenrezig, could be Tara, could be Kalachakra, Yamantaka, whatever your, focal object is, just don't change it. Keep it the same and always do the same one, so that you really can gain the shamatha, that is talked about. I don't have it, certainly. So the spy in the mind is saying, okay, wait a second. Jeff said, focus on this in a way that isn't distracted at all, excited at all, scattered at all, and is very, very bright and clear. So if the spy in my mind who's kind of sitting tight, back, chill, loose, not just like, not like this. The spy in the mind isn't on the subject. The spy in the mind is in the background, just seeing. Because if the spy in the mind is too tight, then you're not going to be able to focus on the object. You're just focusing on the distraction too much. And Tsongkhapa says, you got to be careful with the spy in the mind, the introspection. So you're looking for, okay, are these bad things happening? And then if they are, then mindfulness grabs the focal object back and brings it right back to the forefront of clarity and not moving around and scattered. Right here, brings it right back. Mindfulness brings it back. Spy in the mind of introspection catches it. Has been kind of like, what's the spy? Spies don't stand there like this. Spies stand back and just kind of watch, quietly, not, just kind of watch in a skillful way, They're not right there like this. They're just kind of spying, but they're going to catch it because that spy is so skilled and becomes more and more skilled. And you can see when that spy becomes more and more skilled and the mindfulness becomes more and more secure, you're heading towards, this calm abiding, this shamatha, where you have this physical and mental pliancy, that gives rise, from this equanimity to this, ability to sit on an object for hours, however long you want, really. That's amazing. So let's do that a little bit, and then we'll move on. I have big plans, so we'll move on from there. Okay. breathing in and out and counting Buddha Shakyamuni. Okay, ready? Ding. We're so fortunate to be here tonight to hear the teaching on Lama Tsongkhapa's source of all my good, foundation of all good qualities that encompasses all of the teachings that Buddha Shakyamuni ever gave in order to tame our minds. We're so fortunate. Now, to set our motivation even further, in honor of His Holiness teaching 37 practices of a Bodhisattva tonight, I will read 37 practices of a Bodhisattva to further set our motivation. So I just wanted to get to the place in the book where that is. So we're so fortunate to be able to have this. So now just imagine that Buddha Shakyamuni now is no longer in fixed form, and just imagine that the entire merit field it explodes from Buddha Shakyamuni into the space in front of you. So just imagine that all the Gurus, Buddhas, and Bodhisattvas are in the space in front of you, imagining now Shakyamuni is there, is animated and radiant, so smiling and happy, imagining Kensur Geshe Wandak, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, imagining Geshe Lobsang Gompo, beings like Demalocha Rinpoche and Kensur Genjatso, and Geshe Dorje Damdu and Umzala Geshe Aga and Geshe Mala Tenzin Ladrin La, excuse me, imagining Lama Zopa Rinpoche and Jeffrey Hopkins and all of these holy beings. We're so fortunate, Chado Rinpoche, to have in this world teaching the Dharma, or we're in this world teaching the Dharma that we've connected with, that gives us a chance to be able to become enlightened even in this lifetime. We're so fortunate. Imagining these beings, imagining the extensive deeds, lineage beings such as Buddha, passed down from Buddha Shakyamuni to Maitreya and Asanga and Vasubandhu and Dharmakirti and Dignaga and Vimuktasena and Haribhadra and Gunaprabha and Shakyaprabha, and imagining Lama Salingpa and Atisha, and imagining the beings of the profound view lineage passed down from Buddha Shakyamuni to Manjushri and Arya Nagarjuna and Buddha Palita and Arya Deva and Shanti Deva and Chandrakirti and Baba Vega and Chandrashita and Kamala Shila, and imagining again Lama Salimpa and imagining Atisha there, all these holy beings in the space in front of you, imagining the lineage of blessings passed down from Vajradhara, and imagining Saraha and Machipa and Tilopa and Naropa and Lotsawa Marpa and Milarepa and Gampopa, imagining all these holy beings actually there in the space in front of you, looking at you with these loving eyes, the way you're, imagine whoever your Lama is, or just imagining His Holiness the Dalai Lama, when they look into your eyes, that just feeling you have of almost melting, that they care about you so much, and they know they have so much to offer you. Imagine the entire merit field is looking into your eyes in this way, because we're so connected to them. They are our spiritual family members. They care about us so much, and they've come to this world in order to share the Dharma with us in various capacities, so that we can become Buddhas as quickly as possible. And we're so fortunate that they've done this. Imagining Atisha passing the Lama lineage down to Drontompa, all the old 3 Kadampa lineages, imagining the holy beings of the Nyingma like Padmasambhava, Sakya Kungja Nimpo, the Sakya Pandita, imagining the Karma, the Kaji lineage, the Karmapas, imagining the Galupa lineage, Lama Tsongkhapa, Kirtapje, Jelsapje, Pensin Chilanandrapa, Basu Chuji Jetson, Jayan Sheba, Gonchu Jimmy Wampo, Janja Rubi Dorje, imagining 7th Dalai Lama, all these holy beings, imagining they're in the space in front of you, Jetsumpa, Chuji Jetson from Sarah J, imagining the textbook writer Sarah J, Purbajo, all these holy beings, imagining them in the space in front of you, and imagining the highest Yoga Tantra deities, Performance Tantra deities, Action Tantra deities, the 35 Buddhas, all of the protector deities, imagining them all in the space in front of you. It's important to invoke the merit field when we do practice. Imagine this merit field, all these holy beings in the space in front of you. Now imagine that you act as if you can do what you'll be able to do in the future when you become a Buddha, and that's teach the truth of suchness to all sentient beings. So now imagine that you bring all sentient beings here. That means every being that isn't a Buddha. Sentient being means is a being who's not a Buddha. A Buddha is not a sentient being. So you imagine that you bring all sentient beings here, and now you imagine the space in front of you, all of the Buddhas are there. So now all the beings are here in the universe, those beings that are here to teach, those beings who have perfect love and compassion and perfect wisdom, perfect skillful means and perfect power, who are here to show us the truth of suchness. All those beings are here to connect with, to be able to deepen our understanding of what we need to deepen, because those beings will connect with us if we just make supplications to them and show us what we need to be shown, teach us what we need to be taught, to be able to understand emptiness, see it for ourselves, and become the most reliable guides in the universe. So we imagine those beings are here, and we imagine all sentient beings that we will eventually be able to help when we become Buddhas in the most reliable way, are brought here by us, because we begin to act just like Buddhas if we want to create the causes and conditions and the mindsets that will be able to transform into that incredible being who puts others' needs before their own, because the Bodhisattva path led them to that spontaneous kind of helping that the Buddha can't avoid doing because of dependent origination, because of the Bodhisattva path and the ingrained mind of the Bodhisattva, the ingrained putting others' needs before their own, the ingrained love and compassion on the Bodhisattva path. The Buddha's mind is only love and compassion, only kindness in terms of what the omniscient mind has to offer, and the qualities of loving kindness and so forth that are part of that omniscient mind, that benefit of others. So we imagine that, we are able to then bring all sentient beings here and act act in the ways of a Buddha that has that incredible love and compassion and non-biased and perfect ability to help all sentient beings. So we bring them all here to be like the being we will become. And we become the being we will become by depending upon the pathways that the being who became that relied upon. And here we are, we have all of them placed in front of us. So imagine now we have all sentient beings here, all Buddhas here, and let us recite the 37 practices of a Bodhisattva by Jelse Tome Zampo. And Jelse means conquerors' children. So the Bodhisattva Tome Zampo. Okay, so wherever you see Jelse, it means conquerors' children, or sometimes conqueror's son, but now we say conqueror's children, because it doesn't, a bodhisattva isn't only a son, also, the bodhisattva females, bodhisattva males, or, males and non-male bodhisattvas, as Geshe Dorje Damdu would say, that way, males and non-male. So we have, or females and non-female. Either way, right? It works. You can find your way through that. So so here we say conquerors, children, bodhisattva, tome zampo. Namo lokesh varaya. You see that all phenomena neither come nor go. Still you strive solely for the benefit of being. Supreme Guru and Protector Avalokiteshvara, to you I continually bow with body, speech, and mind. The perfect Buddhas, the sources of benefit and happiness, arise from practicing the genuine Dharma, which in turn depends on knowing how to practice. So I will explain the Bodhisattva practices. Now that you have obtained the precious human birth, the great boat so difficult to find, in order to free yourself and others from the ocean of samsara, listening, reflecting, and meditating with diligence day and night is the practice of a bodhisattva. Passion towards friends churns like water. Hatred towards enemies burns like fire. Through the darkness of ignorance, one forgets what to adopt and what to reject. To abandon one's homeland is the practice of a bodhisattva. Giving up inhospitable places, mental afflictions gradually decrease. With no distractions, virtuous mental activities naturally increase. When mind becomes clear, conviction in the Dharma is born. Therefore, seeking solitude in the practice of a bodhisattva, friends and relatives acquainted for long will separate. Possessions gained with exertion will be left behind. Consciousness, a guest, will leave the guest house of the body. To let go of this life is the practice of a bodhisattva. When due to friendship with someone, the three poisons increase, degrading the activities of listening, reflecting, and meditating, and destroys loving kindness and compassion. To give up such a friendship is the practice of a bodhisattva. When relying on someone, your negativities diminish and your positive qualities grow like a waxing moon. To cherish such a spiritual friend more than your own body is the practice of a bodhisattva. Themselves captives in this prison of samsara, whom can the worldly gods protect? Therefore, to seek refuge in the three jewels, who do not betray you, is the practice of a bodhisattva. The suffering of the lower realms, so difficult to bear, is what the Buddha taught to be the fruit of negative actions. Therefore, even at the cost of your life, never to commit negative actions is the practice of a bodhisattva. Happiness in the three realms, like dew on a blade of grass, is subject to instantaneous fading away. To strive for the supreme state of liberation that never wavers is the practice of a bodhisattva. From beginningless time, your mothers have cherished you. If they suffer now, what good is your own happiness? Therefore, in order to liberate an infinite number of sentient beings, cultivate bodhicitta. Cultivating bodhicitta is the practice of a bodhisattva. All suffering comes from yearning for your own happiness. The perfect Buddhas are born from the intention to benefit others. Therefore, to truly engage your own happiness for the suffering of others, exchange your own happiness for the suffering of others, is the practice of a bodhisattva. Even if someone driven by excessive desire steals all your wealth or incites someone else to steal it, to dedicate this person your body, possession, and all your virtues of the three times is the practice of a bodhisattva. If someone cuts off your head, even when you have not done the slightest wrong, through the power of compassion, to take their misdeed upon yourself is the practice of a bodhisattva. Should someone slander you and proclaim it in a billion worlds, in return, with a loving heart, to proclaim their good qualities is the practice of a bodhisattva. If in the midst of a crowd, someone exposes your hidden faults and abuses you for them, to bow to them with respect, seeing them as a spiritual friend is the practice of a bodhisattva. If someone whom you cherish as dearly as your own child takes you as an enemy, then, like a mother who loves her sick child, to love that person even more is the practice of a bodhisattva. Even when someone who is your equal or inferior, driven by arrogance, seeks to disparage you, to place them on the crown of your head with the same respect as you would accord your own guru is the practice of a bodhisattva. Though gripped by acute poverty and constantly scorned by others, stricken by terrible illness and possessed by evil spirits, to take upon yourself the negativities and suffering of every being, and never to get discouraged is the practice of a bodhisattva. Though you may be famous and prominent, someone to whom others bow, though you amass riches like that of the god of wealth, to see that worldly splendor has no essence, and thus to be without arrogance is the practice of a bodhisattva. If you have not pacified the enemy of your own anger, combating outer opponents will only make them multiply. Therefore, with the army of loving kindness and compassion, to tame your own mind is the practice of a bodhisattva. Sensual pleasures are like salt water. The more you partake of them, the more your craving will increase. Therefore, when something arouses attachment, to abandon it immediately is the practice of a bodhisattva. All appearances are your own mind, and mind itself primordially transcends all mental fabrications. Knowing this and to remain free from apprehending the signs of subject and object is the practice of a bodhisattva. When you encounter objects that please your mind, like rainbows in the summer season, though they seem beautiful, not to view them as real and to give up attachment to them is the practice of a bodhisattva. All suffering is like the death of your child in a dream. To take such delusive appearances true, how exhausting. Therefore, whenever you encounter unpleasant circumstances, to see them as deceptive is the practice of a bodhisattva. If those who aspire to enlightenment willingly give up their bodies, what need is there to mention their material objects? Therefore, with no hope of reward or benefit, to give with generosity is the practice of a bodhisattva. If the lack of discipline prevents you from benefiting yourself, then your wish to benefit others is a joke. Therefore, to observe discipline with no longing for worldly existence is the practice of a bodhisattva. For a bodhisattva who seeks a wealth of virtue, every perpetrator of harm is like a precious treasure. Therefore, without feeling irritation towards any, to cultivate patience is the practice of a bodhisattva. If Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas who strive for their benefit alone exert efforts as if to extinguish a fire burning on their heads, to cultivate joyous effort, the wellspring of positive virtues is the practice of a bodhisattva. Special insight, perfectly endowed with shamatha, completely conquers all afflictions. Knowing this and cultivating meditative concentration that transcends the four formless states is the practice of a bodhisattva. The practice of the first five perfections, but without wisdom cannot achieve perfect enlightenment. Equipped with skillful means in cultivating the wisdom of non-conceptualizing the three spheres is the practice of a bodhisattva. 3 spheres: action, agent, and object. If you do not analyze your own faults, you might put a dharmic facade, put on a dharmic facade while behaving in a non-dharmic way. Therefore, to continually analyze your own faults and then discarding them is the practice of a bodhisattva. If compelled by your own afflictions, you speak of the faults of other bodhisattvas, you yourself will degenerate. Therefore, never citing the faults of those who have entered the Mahayana path is the practice of a bodhisattva. Desire for gain and services leads to mutual arguments, and activities of listening, reflecting, and meditating decline. Therefore, to relinquish attachment to the households of friends, relatives, and benefactors is the practice of a bodhisattva. Harsh words disturb the minds of others and degenerate a bodhisattva's conduct. Therefore, to give up harsh and unpleasant speech towards others is the practice of a bodhisattva. Once you become accustomed to afflictions, they are hard to undermine with antidotes. Therefore, with the remedial weapons of mindfulness and introspection, to forcefully eliminate afflictions such as attachment, the moment they arise is the practice of a bodhisattva. In brief, wherever you are and whatever you do, always examine the state of your mind. Continuously working for the welfare of others is the practice of a bodhisattva. To dedicate the merits thus accumulated through these efforts towards enlightenment with the wisdom free of concepts of the 3 spheres in order to eliminate the suffering of all infinite beings is the practice of the bodhisattva. Now here, important for, you see, here we see mindfulness and introspection. It's not just sitting on your cushion. It says, therefore, the remedial weapons of mindfulness and introspection. Mindfulness, okay, I've told my mind that, I'm trying to get rid of the afflictions. I'm trying to not be angry. I'm trying, not to have these things arise. And when they do, your mind's not doing what you told it to do. So you have a spy in your mind when you're walking around on the sidewalk, not just on your meditation cushion, that's checking to see if you are behaving in the way that you would want to behave if you would like to be happy. Because virtue causes happiness, non-virtue causes suffering. So it ends with, by relying on the words of genuine masters, I've explained the meanings taught in the sutras and tantras and treatises in the form of these 37 practices of a bodhisattva to benefit those who wish to train on the bodhisattva path. Because my intelligence is less and my learning is meager, I lack linguistic skills to please the scholars. Yet, since they are based on sutras and the teachings of genuine masters, I believe these practices of a bodhisattva are flawless. I mean, this just raises hair when I read this, right? Because we know how important lineage is. This is just saying lineage is so important. Pure lineage, unbroken lineage, correct lineage, non-deceptive lineage. So important. Nevertheless, since the vastness of bodhisattva conduct is difficult to fathom by someone like me with an inferior intellect, I pray to the genuine masters to consider with patience all my flaws, such as contradictions, incoherence, and so forth. By the virtue of the merit gathered here and by the power of conventional and ultimate bodhicitta, may all sentient beings become like the benefactor Avalokiteshvara, who dwells neither in the extreme of samsara nor in that of solitary peace. That's a non-abiding nirvana that the Buddha, and we know of the non-abiding nirvana because we see the Dalai Lama is teaching in a couple of hours. Chenrezig Buddha right in our world teaching, doing non-abiding nirvana stuff. If the Dalai Lama, Chenrezig said, oh, I'll do here solitary realizer stuff, he'd be doing abiding nirvana stuff, not helping all sentient beings. But the Mahayana path doesn't allow that. Like I just said, the Bodhisattva path is ingrained in the Buddha, of compassion. So that this spontaneity just dependently originates to help others, and there's no choice. The Buddha's, isn't free from dependent origination and karma, and and it's all non-contaminated, but the dependent origination is dependent origination. The nature of reality, the Buddha doesn't step outside of the nature of reality. The Buddha just works with it in the most skillful way possible, and knows what it is and knows how to, make the mind not have the disturbances that the self-grasping ignorance cause, so that the mind can be big enough to touch every being's mind in the universe. Whoa, it's pretty amazing. Now, I'm going to just read a couple paragraphs from Meditation on Emptiness, because this has become kind of a tradition now that I'm going to keep up with just for a bit, or for who knows how long. It's just what we're doing right now. And what we were talking about last time, I want to read it always right before the Heart Sutra, because this book is all about how to realize emptiness. What is emptiness? What isn't emptiness? What is a non-affirming negative? You know, what is ultimate truth? What is conventional truth? And that's the subject matter of the Heart Sutra, is all of that stuff. So it's important for us to see how to work with it, you know, in terms of how we meditate and so forth. So we set up this meditation, and we said that, okay, in order for me to, you know, figure out, you know, how to arrive at the correct view, I have to see if there's something incorrect going on, I'm being told. I have to see how this I, starting with the I, because I'm being told that the way I perceive the I isn't right. You know, I'm being told that there's selflessness, not selfhood, but there is a self conventionally. I'm being told all of this kind of information, and I don't know what any of it means. So I need to now do an experiment to see what this information means, so that it can become my knowledge, not so that it's something over here I know about. So it becomes my knowledge. So the only way it becomes my knowledge is to create an experience within my mind that would be able to go from what I'm not even knowing is really wrong in a complete way to correct. So I have to see how things are naturally occurring to me in order to know what it is that I need to negate about that. Because I'm being told the way that things are occurring to me with all these weird words, conventional, ultimate, selfless, you know, inherent, intrinsic, not intrinsic. I'm being told that things aren't the way that I think they are. So in meditation, the way we begin to meditate on emptiness is we let the mind naturally see how the I appears. We're not trying to analyze it. We're not trying to bring it up. We're not trying to say it's this thing that's separate from, we're just trying to see how it kind of appears. This kind of self of Jeff just kind of appears objectively real. I don't say it's something separate from my body. I don't get into that when it naturally appears. I merely just experience this whole thing over here. You know, I have this, you know, I have this appearance of this kind of thing that's this unit that appears. Okay, so then you kind of bring that into the focus of how does this I appear? Objectively real, intrinsically existent, inherently existent. So you haven't done really much more than just saying it's appearing like it's just really real. I'm this. I am all. I'm this. But then it starts to be, wait, I'm all of this. I'm this. So then then this naturally occurring I, you have something that's now a hypothetical I. You know, if there was an I, you know, you have this hypothetical, objectively existent thing. It's hypothetical because it's not true. This hypothetical thing that's always appearing to you. And now you're kind of identifying it because you're paying attention to it a little bit. So it says, though such an I does not in reality exist, an image or concept of it does exist and will appear. So this is so important. This thing that doesn't exist, the occurrence of it existing exists in our mind. So we create this kind of general idea, and that general idea exists. And if it exists and it's wrong, it needs to not exist. Very clear. I think it is initially difficult to identify the appearance of a concrete I, but in time it becomes obvious. Sometimes the I appears to be the breath. So here we're starting to see, okay, now it's naturally appearing. Let's take it a little further. Let's see, okay, what are What are some ideas about the I? Sometimes it seems to be the breath. This is me taking a deep breath. It appears that I'm this. And sometimes the stomach, as when one has an upset stomach and says, I'm sick. That sickness seems to be the I. I'm sick. You know, it's funny how this I suddenly appears in all these different ways. And we'll start to identify it if we're meditators. We'll start to see, here our name, there it is. Or we'll start to see, ourselves looking in the mirror and, wow. Or what happened to me at the supermarket the other day, which is interesting. Geshe Dorje Damdu is always telling this story. And I think this is important because this is how we meditate. Always telling the story about how, when someone says you look older than you really are, how that affects you. And he had an experience where he asked a doctor to tell him his age, and it was much older than he actually was, and how it affected his mind. And I, during these teachings up until this experience that I had, thought like, well, I really, I don't really care about my age. I don't really, age is nothing to me, whatever, I get it. Some people are like kind of worried, but I'm not really like that. Other day, I'm in the supermarket and I'm checking out, and the high school or whatever, everybody looks like they're in high school now that I'm older, says to me, excuse me, sir, should I be applying the senior citizen discount? And I'm thinking to myself, oh, she just must not know what a senior citizen discount is. Like, really, I started feeling, this thing in me, like, oh, and then I said to her, like, well, the senior citizen discount, like, so now I'm like obviously reacting. Okay. So the self-cherishing attitude's full on. I'm reacting. I'm like, well, this person can't possibly, let me educate this teenager about what senior citizen, it's an age. I said, I think isn't that 60 or 65? I'm not really sure what it is. And she said, oh, yes. So do you qualify? And then I realized that my self-cherishing attitude, because I try to do this, I really do. This is like, I saw her become uncomfortable. I saw that my self-cherishing attitude now has made someone else uncomfortable because they just said something, they're doing their job and made an observation. Now they're their mind now is disturbed because of my self-cherishing attitude. You don't see the connection till you see this connection. Now this person's mind's disturbed, and I can see like body language, and I can see like trying to be like, oh yeah, well, I have to, ask. And, so I saw right then and there, the self-cherishing attitude, I just saw it all just in full display. And then I saw what it did to the person who I was reacting to. And it was such a subtle interaction. It wasn't like some big thing went on, but I saw it. And I saw what Geshe Dorje Damdu was talking about. That's the mirror of the Dharma. When we can catch those moments, we can catch that, as they say, that, naked, person who's never brought us anything but suffering, this empty-handed beggar that we just think is so great. That's the self-cherishing attitude that's never given us anything but suffering, that we just think has given us so much happiness. And I just saw it in full display. And then I recognized that in order for me to experience the most happiness possible, just keep on the track with me. I'm at the supermarket still. In order for me to experience the most happiness possible, I have to do what my neighbor did and have that moment where when he had a child, he had that altruistic feeling, that love that was putting the child's needs way before his own, and felt a happiness he'd never felt before. And there was no part in there of anything but the other, so that love was able to be experienced, that happiness. Whereas my self-cherishing attitude caused this domino effect that disallowed me to experience bliss in relation to that sentient being in the supermarket. So now I'm cut off from bliss plus bliss, how many times a day? Minus bliss, minus bliss, minus bliss. Because of my self-cherishing attitude. And I didn't walk up to the counter with anything but a smile. Anything but a good guy Jeff at the Roberts supermarket. Makes everybody happy and makes jokes and stuff. I walked up there thinking, oh, I'm just, I'm listening to the music. And then all of a sudden it just took something that I believed to be objectively real to meet with the self that I believe to be objectively real. And boy, what a mess that self-grasping ignorance creates when it just bursts into a self-cherishing attitude that bursts into, right, this exaggeration. So let's look at what happened. This is what we do. So we have a self-grasping ignorance that then turns into a self-cherishing attitude. It's now, and now there's this exaggeration of an event. Oh, well, I have to be younger than that because I'm handsome and always look younger than my age. So now there's this exaggeration of a self. This view of the transitory collection, I and mine, my aggregates, my face. I'm usually my is so much better than. So, okay, we're off to the races. This view of the transitory collections, grasping at I, grasping at mine, grasping at phenomena as being inherently existent, self-cherishing attitude springs from that. Now we're off to the races. I'm exaggerating everything. And now I have attachment or aversion or ignorance. What do I have? Aversion. I want to push away. I have something I don't like, I've heard. Now my mind's disturbed. Now I'm trying to push it away. I'm trying to do things that are in the category of aversion. And even though it doesn't look like that because I'm embarrassed, now it's affecting the person like I'm angry at them. Wow. It's because of this push-pull. Like I want to push it away. Now this person's being affected as if I was yelling at them in a subtle way. I've disturbed their mind. And now I've blocked my bliss. Really, it's amazing when we can see. So it says, I am sick. Sometimes the eye appears to be the ear or the nose or the tongue, the body or mental consciousness. In some, the eye appears at times to be physical and at times mental. When minute you break your leg, the eye's your leg for a moment. And when I broke my ankle, the eye was my, right there, So we need to analyze this. The fifth Dalai Lama says that in the end of the appearance of the eye and the appearance of the mind and body are as mixed as if water and milk, undifferentiable, but so clear as to seem graspable with the hand. Like this eye, body, mind, it's all just this one thing. It's like graspable. Okay, so let's stop there. So you're looking for this thing that appears to you to be this solid, single, permanent, unitary, independent, substantially autonomous self. And that's going to be what you rip down. And that's what the Heart Sutra rips down. It says there is no inherent existent self of person or a phenomena. So we'll read the Heart Sutra. It's probably like 11 o'clock at night. No, I'm kidding. I can go on. You all know that. So, but that's good. That means that I've been trained well, so I have something to go on about. Okay. Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge. Thus have I heard once the Blessed One was dwelling in Rajagriha at Vulture Peak Mountain together with a great gathering of the Sangha of monks, great gathering of the Sangha of Bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One entered the Samadhi that expresses the Dharma called profound illumination. At the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasapa, while practicing the profound Prajaparamita, saw in this way. Saw the 5 skandhas to be empty of nature. Then through the power of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasapa, how should a son or daughter of noble family train who wishes to practice a profound Prajaparamita? Addressed in this way, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasapa, said to Venerable Shariputra, O Shariputra, son or daughter of noble family who wishes to practice profound Prajaparamita, should see in this way, seeing these 5 skandhas to be empty of nature. Form is emptiness, emptiness also is form. Emptiness is no other than form, form is no other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, perception, formation, and consciousness are emptiness. Thus, Shariputra, all dharmas are emptiness. There are no characteristics, there is no birth and no cessation, there is no impurity and no purity, there is no decrease, no increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no perception, no formation, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, taste, no touch, no dharmas, no I, dhatu, up to no mind, dhatu, no dhatu of dharmas, no mind consciousness, dhatu, no ignorance, no end of ignorance, up no old age and death, no end of old age and death, no suffering, no origin of suffering, no cessation of suffering, path, no wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, since the bodhisattvas have no attainment, they abide by means of Prajaparamita. Since there is no obscuration of mind, there is no fear. They transcend falsity and attain complete nirvana. All the Buddhas of the three times by means of Prajaparamita fully awaken to unsurpassable, true, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the great mantra of Prajaparamita, the mantra of great insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequal mantra, the mantra that calms all suffering, should be known as truth, since there is no deception. The Prajaparamita mantra is said in this way: Tiata om gate gate, paragate, parasangate, buddhisoha. 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 Thus Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train in the profound Prajaparamita. Then the Blessed One arose from that samadhi. Praise noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, saying, good, good, O son of noble family, thus it is, O son of noble family, thus it is. One should practice the profound Prajaparamita just as you have taught, and all the Tathagatas will rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, Venerable Shariputra and noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, that whole assembly in the world with its gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas rejoiced and praised the words of the Blessed One. And again, we were reading from Jeffrey Hopkins' incredible text, Meditation on Emptiness. I encourage all of you who want to know what the Madhyamaka, Prasangika view of emptiness is. If you want to know what emptiness is, this is a very, very important book, but please be patient with yourself. This is a book that I've had this 25 years ago. I still have a very hard time understanding, and it's very complex material, but it's been one of the most important resources that I've had in the last 25 years and I've used for all my translations and technical details. So I just want to say thank you, Jeffrey Hopkins. May you live a very, very long time, and may all of you experience the incredible writings he's done. 63. Okay. Samara Jasandara Samara Evea Dom Gate Baragate Barasangati Bodisoa Baba Gojunji Gaid in Bidoji Lubodoji Mebodoji Shiwadoji Dragi Baji Medubija Danji Jedingoriz or Gary Joja Wada Medono Bejan Danja Wada Tumba Jonjim Bonson Joji Daji de Jandanda de Lejo. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this is a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. Holy Lamas high, wrap the sky of your Dharma bodies in massive clouds of knowledge and love, and let them pour upon the earth of your disciples as we are ready, a shower of rain, the teachings deep and wide. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. Zanje Jadan Zaji Janan La Janju Badu Dani Jazuji Dagi Jiji Bezananji Jala Benje Zanje Jubajo Zanje Jadan Zaji Janan La Janju Badu Dani Jazuji Dagi Jiji Bezananji Jala Benje Zanje Jubajo Zanje Jadan Zaji Janan La Janju Badu Dani Jazuji Dagi Juji Bezananje Drala Bejazanye Dubarjo. Enthused by great compassion, you taught the Immaculate Dharma to dispel all perverted views. To you, the Buddha Gautama, I pay homage. If you're attached to this life, you're not a spiritual practitioner. If you're attached to samsara, you have no renunciation. If you're attached to your own self-interest, you have no bodhicitta. If there's grasping, you do not have the view. From Sachin Kunga Nyingpo, parting from the four attachments. Okay, so let's get to some of the business. It's all the business, though. We're just talking about the stages of the path. And Lama Tsongkhapa's foundation of all good qualities, source of all my good, encompasses all the stages of the path. So I think that any ornaments that we can put on it, then we read it, and then we can, we read the 37 practices of the Bodhisattva. And now we're in the section on, if I'm not well trained in the three moralities, I cannot become a Buddha. And we're in the section on the Bodhisattva and the Bodhisattva conduct. And the 37 practices of a Bodhisattva, show us how a Bodhisattva conducts him or herself, and how the wisdom of emptiness allows him or her to conduct themselves that way. Because there's no obscuration of mind, there's no fear. So without that fear, without that grasping, without that level of self-cherishing, when you reduce that, then one is able to do the things that we hear about the Bodhisattva doing, because they're putting others' needs before their own, and there's not fear. There's this, Geshe Dorje Damdu was teaching today, what would happen if you could just have infinite love and no suffering that went around with that, so we look at that, and we see that. Okay, so let me just read the source of all my good. If you could screen share, you might as well. That'd be great. And so the Bodhisattva becomes more and more realistic about the self, and about what's good for the conventional self that becomes a Buddha, and what's bad for the conventional self that becomes a Buddha. And he or she isn't fearful because a level of that distraction of grasping is, been lessened depending on if they've seen emptiness or not. It depends. So anyway, it's just important to understand that the wisdom of emptiness allows the Bodhisattva, as they go through the stages higher and higher, to actually pull off, the activities that they do. And we think about them, and it's just unfeasible. Like, how could you do such a thing? In the text say, the Bodhisattvas give their eyes, but we should start with vegetables, So, source of all my good. Screen share, please. Thank you. Is it, if we can. The Source of All My Good by Lama Tsongkhapa, the Yunten Chijurma. Okay. Yunten Gunji Sheja Jinchinje, Sushin Demba Lanji Sawa Ru, Lepa Tone, Pepa Tuma Yi, Gupa Chembo Demba Jinjilo. The source of all my good is my kind Lama, my Lord. Bless me first to see that taking myself to him in the proper way is the very root of the path, and grant me then to serve and follow him with all my strength and reverence. Lenchi Nyepi Dewe Denzandi, Shintu Nyeka Dunshen Sheju Ne, Nyinsen Guntu Nyimpo Lempi Lo, Bless me first to realize that the excellent life of leisure I found just this once is ever so hard to find and ever so valuable. Grant me then to wish and never stop to wish that I could take its essence night and day. Lusoyo wa chuyi chubo shin, yodu jipi jiwa jempa dan, shiwe jesu ludan jima shin, kana lady jishin janwala. My body and the life in it are fleeting as the bubbles in the sea froth of a wave. Bless me first thus to recall the death that will destroy me soon, and help me find sure knowledge that after I've died, the things I've done, the white or black, and what those deeds will bring to me, follow always close behind, as certain as my shadow. Grant me then to ever to be careful to stop the slightest wrong of the many wrongs we do, and try to carry out instead each and every good of the many that we may. Ngepa dembo nyene nyepi so, jashin drawa nanjang ponwa dang, gezo dada Drupa Jepa La Dadu Badan Demba Jinji Lo. And then I'll read the next stanza in Tibetan. Jepe Ming on Dungya Gonji Go Yidem Miron Sipi Punso Ji Nyeme Rine Tarpi Dewa La Dungya Chempo Jewa Jinji Lo. Bless me to perceive all that's wrong with the seemingly good things of this life. I can never get enough of them. They cannot be trusted. They are the door to every pain I have. Grant me then to strive instead for the happiness of freedom. Nanda Sampa Dei Dramba Yi, Jendan Sheshin Payu Chempo Yi, Dembi Sawa Susu Tarpa La, Drupa Nyimpo Jepa Jinji Lo. Grant that these pure thoughts may lead me to be watchful and to recall what I should be doing. Grant to me to give the greatest care to make the vows of morality the essence of my practice. They are the root of Buddhist teachings. Jrani sitso hlongwa jishin du, marja drowa gunjan dejawa, done drowa druwe I have slipped and fallen into the sea of the suffering life. Bless me to see that every living being, everyone my own mother, has fallen into. Grant me then to practice the wish for enlightenment, to take on myself the task of freeing them all. Sensan Jejan, Suchin Nansun La, Gompa Mena, Shanchu Midru Pa, Lepa Tone, Jesse, Domba La, Sunba, Drupa, Lopa, Jinji Lo. Bless me to see clearly that the wish itself is not enough, for if I'm not well trained in the three moralities, I cannot become a Buddha. Grant me then a fierce resolve to master the Bodhisattva vows. Remember asking Rinpoche so many times, what is this Suchim Sum? These three moralities. And so wonderful that we can talk about, what these are. Master the Bodhisattva vows. Lopi Yula Yengwa Shije Xing Yangda Dunla Sushin Jepa Yi Shine Laton Zundu Jewe Lan Nyodu Jula Jewa Jinji Lo. Grant that I may quickly gain the path where quietude and insight join together, one which quiets my mind from being distracted to wrong objects, the other which analyzes the perfect meaning in the correct way. Sumo Lanjan Nudu Jopana Tepa Gunji Jojo Dorje Te Gelsan Jipu Jungu Dampa De La Nidu Juba Jinji Lo. Grant that once I practice well the path shared, become a vessel that is worthy, I enter with perfect ease the way of the diamond, highest of all ways, holiest store, to come inside for the fortunate and good. Detseng Udru Nani Drupi Je Nanda Dansi Domba Sonwa La Choma Mimpi Ngepa Nyejo Ne Sudan Dude Sonwa Jinji Lo. Bless me to know with genuine certainty that when I've entered thus, cause that gives me both the high attainments is to keep my pledges and my vows most pure. Grant me then to always keep them, even at the cost of my life. Dene Jude Ninpo Rimni Ji Ne Nanji Shin Dune Sumbayi Tunji Nejo Chula Megaye Pa Dompi Sunshin Drupa Jinjilo. Bless me next to realize as well as I can the crucial points of both the steps, the essence of the secret ways. Bless me to practice as the holy ones have spoken, putting all my effort in and never leaving off the practice of the whole 4 times, highest that there is. Detar lanzan dumbi shinyan dan sushin drupi drona shaten shin shidan nangi padu shupit so nyewa shewa jinji lotu so. Bless me, grant me that the spiritual friend who shows me this good road and all my true companions in this quest live long and fruitful lives. Bless and grant me that the rain of obstacles, things within me or outside me that could stop me now and stop and end forever. Jewa gundu yanda lama dan drame juji bela lonju jin sadan lanji yunden razo ne toji changi go banyo du jo. If I only knew them all that well. In all my lives, may I never live apart from my perfect lamas. May I bask in the glory of the Dharma. May I fulfill perfectly every good quality of every level and path and reach then quickly the place where I become myself, the one who holds the diamond. It's really important to me that I keep reading Tibetan and saying Tibetan out loud and don't lose my Tibetan. So even if my Tibetan sounds silly, maybe to someone who's really good at Tibetan listening, just know that I'm doing it so that I can keep acquainting my mind with it so that I can become a Buddha quicker. Not to, show off or, see if you like my Tibetan. It's to leave imprints in others' minds of the Tibetan. Those listening in Tibetan can say, oh, and do the prayer along and say it maybe better and leave imprints in my mind and leave, habituation of keeping the Tibetan going. Because I'm finding I'm hitting walls. I said, I'm done. I've had enough of Tibetan. I'm studying in English from now on. And, in terms of literature, I was, Geshe Aga, I'm studying with, orally, teaching me in Tibetan. But now I'm just seeing that, it's not enough. So I have to keep my Tibetan and improve my Tibetan, not only keep it up. What I wanted to just talk briefly about, I only have 10 minutes. I know that. So in 3 or 4 minutes, I will move on to the dedications and so forth. But these 3 moralities that are really important to understand, because they're what we do in our daily lives to try to emulate the actions of a Buddha, to try to make our minds start to be comfy with being bodhisattvas, comfortable with it. We make ourselves more comfortable with these ideas that to us now sound crazy, like just letting people if they need to, walk on me, if it'll help them, please do. It just sounds crazy, so we have to start to give vegetables first, and then know how we could have no fear, and know that if we needed to help them, that would help us the most if we behaved in that way. And we would know the difference because our minds would be calm enough to survey the situation, not have an outburst unless we need to have an outburst for that sentient being. So that, bodhisattvas don't turn into just walk on me. A bodhisattva may yell at someone to, some of the teachers are very strict. Some of the discipline masters, Geshe Gombo was very strict, and not strict because they're jerks, strict because they know that some people like me are hard-headed and, need to be snapped out of it, snapped out of my crap. And, sometimes an effective way to do that is to make someone go, ah! And then you go, well, wait a second, I really like that person's really wise. So why am I going, ah? And then I can then identify the natural. We're always just trying to identify what, the mirror of the Dharma, this thing about identifying the I, we're always doing that, right? We're trying to identify the in us when it comes out and firmly face and avert it. And the more we do that, the less we have. It's so obvious that the bodhisattvas you become a bodhisattva by, becoming more comfortable with what a bodhisattva thinks like and acts like. It's how you would do anything you wanted to become more comfortable with. So we're going to get into, the ways that you work for the sake of others. There's going to be 11 ways, and and it goes, the full range of helping sentient beings. You're like, oh, it must mean going to Vrajagriha at Vulture Peak Mountain and teaching them emptiness. No, it talks about first, to help them with things like farming and business. So you're thinking like, oh, I gotta, because the bodhisattva's got to be super skillful, like Columbo, like not like a liar, but like Columbo tricked the people into telling on themselves. The Buddha's trying to trick you into doing the good, the things you need to do to have no suffering ever again and infinite bliss. So the bodhisattva's trying to become better and better at doing that. So the bodhisattva needs to know how to do a bunch of stuff. You'd see Rinpoche, learning about these strange things. And I would think like, I don't know, right? We always, want to, think of the teachers, Buddha or Buddha, right? So I would think about like, he'd be watching these different weird things on TV for like 5 minutes and he'd be really invested in them. And then no attachment, could care less. I'd be trying to figure out who won. It'd be like axe throwing. I'd be in and out of the room, not really watching it. But then I'd be like, well, who wins he just didn't care. But he'd be acquiring all of these different things. And I thought about like, well, this is what the bodhisattva has to do. This is the Buddha's, he's teaching maybe something here. Because we're always trying to see what's the teacher teaching here. And if they're not teaching something, if I imagine they're teaching something and it's good, it worked. That's the beauty of it. Imagining the teacher is the Buddha allows you to kind of generate that same kind of, quality of virtue in relation to them. So it's similar to that. So it's interesting to see that, we've taken all of the tantric vows and bodhisattva vows, and now we've accumulated all this merit and become like super skilled at leading beings to the truth. Now, the third thing that they say the higher bodhisattvas are practicing starts with plowing fields, carpentry, and helping someone with their business. And it's interesting to see how the wide range of skills you need in order to teach beings the truth of suchness, because that's the only thing that will really help them. But nobody wants to hear it. So like Columbo, nobody wants to tell on themselves. Nobody wants to hear about everything you think's wrong, the way you grasp, da, 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 da. But the Buddha comes in and goes, hey, how you doing today? Yeah. Well, how's that stuff appearing to you? Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it does. It appears like that. Everybody, appeared like that to me before. So strange. But do you think it's really like that? I mean, I'm not sure. Do you? And the Buddha, so the Buddha then, like Columbo, makes us start thinking in a way we never intended to. So this is what the Bodhisattva gets better and better at doing. I think you get it. And that's what we're going to learn how to get better and better at doing, so that we can we're not starting with beings on Pluto. We're thinking about our neighbor. And does our neighbor need help with something in some way, so that I could be maybe an example of a practitioner? I'm not going to go over to my neighbor and start teaching the Dharma. And I'm not a bodhisattva that knows that they have the capacity to just snap into it. But I can be an example. They know I'm a Buddhist. They know it. So I can go over there and I can do things and behave in ways that are attractive, that then has led some, I don't know, to say, oh, I'm interested in that. Oh yeah. And they got a book, not one that I really am that into, but a book that leads, that I, found others have really liked. Not even in our tradition. So this is what we start to play with. Did it help or not? I don't know. I'm not good enough yet. But if I start playing with it, I'll get good enough to know. Okay, if you're attached to this life, you're not a spiritual practitioner. If you're attached to samsara, you have no renunciation. If you're attached to your own self-interest, you have no bodhicitta. If there's grasping, you do not have the view. That's our mirror, everyone. How are we doing on the beings of three capacities, the teachings, the trainings for beings of three capacities? How are we doing? Are we a being of small capacity? If you're attached to this life, no. Oh, so I don't even make it in the gate of capacity. Wow. So I've got work to do. So this is the mirror of the Dharma. That's why we say it. It's not to discourage you. It's to encourage you that, okay, I have a mirror. I have a way to know. And I have a path. So it's great. Fantastic. What could be better? To know what's wrong and what to do about it. If you didn't, if you knew it was wrong and not know what to do with it, that stinks. If you don't know what's wrong and you know what to do with it, what are you going to do with that? But if you know it's wrong and you know what to do with it, what's the problem? That's what Shantideva would say. Kind of. Prayer for the flourishing of Jitsongkhapa's teachings. Though he's the father producer of all conquerors, as a conqueror's son, he produced the thought of upholding a conqueror's Dharma in infinite worlds. Through this truth, may the conqueror Lozong's teachings flourish. When in the presence of Buddha Indraketa, he made this vow, the conqueror in his offerings praised his powerful courage. Through this truth, may the conqueror Lozong's teachings flourish. That the lineage of pure view and conduct might spread, he offered a white crystal rosary to the sage who prophesied him a conch and who gave him a conch and prophesied through this truth, may the conqueror Lozong's teachings flourish. His pure view free of eternity or destructions, his pure meditation cleansed of dark fading and fog, his pure conduct practiced according to conqueror's orders, may the conqueror Lozong's teachings flourish. Learned, since he extensively sought out learning, reverend, rightly applying it to himself, good, dedicating it all for beings and doctrine, may the conqueror Lozong's teachings flourish. Through the being sure that all scriptures definitive and interpretive were without contradiction, advice for one person's practice, he stopped all misconduct, may the conqueror Lozong's teachings flourish. Listening to the explanations of the three Pitakas, realized teachings, practice of the three highest higher trainings, his skilled and accomplished life story is amazing. May the conqueror Lozong's teachings flourish. Outwardly calmed and subdued by the hearer's conduct, inwardly trusting in the two stages practice, he allied without clash the good paths of Sutra and Tantra. May the conqueror Lozong's teachings flourish. Combining voidness explained as the causal vehicle with great bliss achieved by method, the effect vehicle, heart essence of 80,000 Dharma bundles. May the conqueror Lozong's teachings flourish. By the power of ocean of oath-bound doctrine protectors like the main guardians of the three beings pass, quick-acting Lord, Vaishravana, Karmayana, may the conqueror Lozong's teachings flourish. In short, by the lasting of glorious gurus' lives, by the earth being full of good, learned, reverend holders of the teaching, and by the increase of the power of its patrons, may the conqueror Lozong's teachings flourish. Very interesting to see how this, self-grasping ignorance really manifests and acts as kind of our like foe, our opponent. And my point is that today, okay, so today we're about at it 7 or 8 hours of, Dharma today, 7 or 8, teachings, and I'm teaching. And I used to work in a restaurant 12, 14 hours straight, running around, banging out, dough, whatever I was doing, taking hundreds and hundreds of orders. So lots of information. So it's not the information coming in. That's the problem. It's not the work or the exhaustion. It's the self-cherishing attitude and the self-grasping ignorance. It's just like, oh my God, enough already. I like behaving the way I behave. And it's so exhausting. And I can feel it right now. I can feel the self-grasping, self-cherishing attitude. Now, as much as I can do it, I can just feel how much it was pissed that I tried to fight it today. Not that it's a separate entity, but I think you know what I mean. And my own mind has allowed me to become completely exhausted because it's so wrong and it's so unready to be right. And that's why we have to keep doing it, because my mind's so unready to be right. It's so unready to be right that I can sit around, just hear some stuff that I really love hearing, say some stuff that I really love hearing. I mean, sit around. I wasn't running, and feel like I've been on my feet all day and ran a marathon. That's the self-cherishing attitude being affected right there. I think that's what I'm going to take it as. I hope so, because I'm tired. I hope it's been affected. Okay. So we'll do the concluding mandala offerings and we'll get out of here. But there's no getting out of here. We have to keep doing everything I'm saying. We just have to keep doing, because, if we don't, we'll never get out of here. Samsara. The fundamental ground is scented with incense, is strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the 4 continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this is a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. I dedicate whatever virtues I've collected for the benefit of the teachings of all sentient beings, in particular for the essential teachings of Venerable Samdrapa, to shine forever. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. Any mistakes that I've made, I apologize. I did not make them on purpose. May they be purified. May your mind be purified. May all of our body, speech, and minds be purified by the Vajrasattva mantra I'm about to recite, imagining Vajrasattva inseparable from your root deity in the space in front of you, and imagining from Vajrasattva and from the bliss that Vajrasattva would be experiencing by knowing that we're engaging in exactly what we need to do in order to become Buddhas, from that bliss that Vajrasattva, who's inseparable from our root Lama, is experiencing because they're seeing us here. Imagine that white, red, and blue light rays and nectars are flowing out of Vajrasattva, and flowing onto us and purifying ours and all sentient beings' body, speech, and mind. And these white, red, and blue light rays and nectars are transforming into white ohms, red ahs, blue ohms, and purifying our body, speech, and mind, and all sentient beings' body, speech, and mind, respectively. Sorry, that took longer than I would have liked. Om benza sada samaya manubulaya benza sada zena vajista deda me baba sutokaya me baba subukaya me baba anurada me baba savasidi me prayacha savakama suche me kitam chiyan kuru hum ha 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 ho bhagavan sava tata kata benza mama muka benza baba maha samaya safa home. Hey, may we always be protected by Paul and Lama. Jorama 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 Chichikala Rama Chidachi Ginger Long Jong Jorama 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 Chichikala Rama Chidachi Ginger Long Jong Jorama 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 Chichikala Rama Chidachi Ginger Long Jong Jorama 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 Chichikala Rama Chidachi Ginger Long Jong Jorama 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 Chichikala Rama Chidachi Ginger Long Jong Jorama 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 Chichikala Rama Chidachi Ginger Long Jong Jorama 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 Chichikala Rama Chidachi Ginger Long Jong Jorama 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 Dunjo Kalarajemo May any obstacles you have to meeting with the Dharma successfully be removed by the mantra of Drapu Sundri, the 3 wrathful protectors. Om Vajrapani Haryagriva Garuda Om Ve. Okay. I dedicate all this virtue to emulate the knowledge of the hero Manjushri, and likewise Samantabhadra as well. With whatever dedication is praised as supreme by all the conquerors who traverse the 3 times, I also dedicate all my roots of virtue for the sake of auspicious deeds. Long life prayer for His Holiness the Dalai Lama, again, teaching in an hour or so, maybe even shorter. Turn on the Dalai Lama Live YouTube, because sometimes he starts at 9 Eastern Standard Time, says 9:30, I think. Last I looked, it was going to be around 9-ish, but check for yourself. It could change. He's teaching 37 practices of Bodhisattva tonight that I just read to give you a little primer. In that pure land surrounded by snowy mountains, you are the source of all benefit and happiness, all powerful. Avalokiteshvara, Tenzin Gyatso, may you stay until samsara's end. And he can hear us because he's omniscient. He's the Buddha of compassion. So he just heard us. So please, stay until samsara's end, and he will. He has no choice. That's the thing. We say that because we want to keep connecting, but the Buddha of compassion really just acts from the Bodhisattva path out of spontaneity and has no choice. But it says that the Sambhogakaya is there until everyone's a Buddha. So I don't know. So the Nirmanakaya then is emanating as well, is the point. Now with a prayer for supplication to Khenso Geshe Wandak, composed by myself, completed on March 6, 2023, 1 year after Rinpoche's passing from this world. Complex yogi poses as a simple monk. I just still never get used to the idea that, Rinpoche's not like I can call him or he's just in there. I know all you spiritual practitioners out there, I connect with Rinpoche very, very deeply in terms of, I'm talking about the person that I could touch, who I just love so much. It's so hard for me to not have him physically in this world. But when I do things like this, he's just right there, because that was all our relationship was him teaching me the Dharma and leading me to the truth of suchness. I feel him so closely when I talk about these things. The complex yogi poses as a simple monk. Homage to Khenso Geshe Wandak Rinpoche, our precious spiritual friend who is inseparable from Aryatara. I fully prostrate, covering as many atoms of the earth as possible, to your pure body, speech, mind, and enlightened activities. I offer to you drinking water, bathing water, flowers, incense, candles, scented water, food, music purified by Om Ahom. The rarity of having 1 million wish-fulfilling gems is a common occurrence compared to meeting with a holy teacher like you, who placed the complete path to Buddhahood in our childlike hands. Just like a teacher who came to Tibet with a lamp to dispel the darkness of ignorance, you, kind abbot, arrived in the West with a lineage purer than a diamond and begged us never to be satisfied with partial instructions. The teachings of the extensive deeds of profound view lineages flowed from your lips like nectar for our ears that elucidated the teachings for beings of 3 capacities. Now that sound has stopped. All composite things are impermanent. You told us that all of your teachers passed away and understood this sadness, entreating us to continue our studies. The Buddha does not wash away the negativities of beings, nor does he remove their miseries by his hands. His spiritual realizations are not transferred to them. It is by teaching the truth of suchness that beings are liberated. We are not prepared to take this difficult journey to the highest goodness of Buddhahood without your continued guidance. The good sadness in our hearts would be too overwhelming. May you swiftly return to this world and take care of us in all of our lives, wherever we may be, never leaving our hearts and crowns. May all sentient beings perfectly realize renunciation, bodhicitta, and the correct view of emptiness, so they know who you really are. And just a point to make in the prayer, it says we are not prepared to take the difficult journey to the highest goodness of Buddhahood. So why would we write that? When we go to Arya Nagarjuna's text that Rinpoche taught us very well, we know that there's high status and certain goodness. High status being rebirth in the higher realms. Certain goodness, 2 divisions. Liberation in the here solitary realizer vehicle, Hinayana, liberation. And Buddhahood. The highest goodness, high status, certain goodness, among the 2 goodness is Buddhahood. So that's why I wrote that. So I threw a little Nagarjuna in there, just as a little kind of secret kind of point, because Rinpoche, taught us so much about how to achieve, freedom from the lower realms and how to achieve liberation in the medium scope, and Buddhahood in the great scope. Liberation of the hero solitary realizer in the medium scope. So thank you, everybody. I hope you all get to see His Holiness tonight. Check out something Dorje Damdu has to teach. There's so many things going on. Just check it out, please, on these other applications. I promise you won't be disappointed. And if you are, then I'm not omniscient, so I can't make those kind of promises. See ya. Thank you so much, everybody.